Me screaming, like screaming in the top of my lungs, like, say sorry. Oh my God, I never felt so free after that. But I also have to acknowledge that that was not easy for my mom to hear.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Highest Version podcast. I'm your host Randy, and on this podcast we sit down with my network and listen on their stories on how they become the highest version of themselves. Today's guest is Lynn. Me and Lynn go way back to college, and by way back I mean only just a few years. We met through a mutual friend and even saw each other at a dance workshop and had a little bit of connection through there as well. Lynn started out her story immigrating here to the United States at a very young age, and now she's pursuing her dream by pursuing her PhD at Brown University. Me and Lynn's relationship has grown in strength in the recent years, just through deep conversations about mental health. She's actually someone I really admired, being not afraid to speak, express herself and speak her voice and speak her truth. And probably is the biggest fan of the color pink. So let's welcome Lynn. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Randy.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And I felt like you were great to be on this podcast just because of our conversations, and especially like in recent years, which is kind of crazy, right? I feel like maybe this past year or 2 years ago that we really got really connected like that.
Yeah.
So I'm happy where our friendship is moving in that direction, and hoping to obviously like keep up with that.
Yeah, I am glad to. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yes, of course. And thank you for making time out of your busy schedule, because I know you have to go back to Rhode Island today. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
No worries. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump in. Let's get into your story. Let's talk about your experience, moving here to the States, because I know you said that you immigrated here and how that kind of has shaped you to be the person that you am, that shaped the person that you are. And if you could also state your ethnicity for the viewers, that'd be great.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Lynn, and I'm Vietnamese, 100%. I think I haven't done my 24andMe yet, but and like Randy said, I immigrated here when I was 12 or 11. This changes sometimes because I don't remember exactly. But yeah, that was a long time ago. So I would say it was, honestly, like that experience really, really shaped like who I am today. Partly because I think at 11 and 12, that's the age where you're like very impressionable. And so that experience like truly, like shaped who I am today. And yeah, I haven't revisited it in like a long time. So I'm kind of glad that we're doing this today, because I think if you asked me probably like a couple years ago, I can like recall the memories, the stories so well. Because I think up until then, still I carry some of that, for lack of a better word, trauma with me. Yeah. And that was like a big part of like whatever I did back then was a huge part of who I was. But I'm glad we're sitting down today, 2024. I think I'm in a new chapter, and yeah, like it's just kind of nice to now kind of think back to that version of Lynn back when she was 12. Yeah.
I guess what memories do you have of immigrating here to the States, if you remember any of them?
Yeah, so I think if I had to sum it up, maybe I should give a little backstory actually. So when we came here, my mom decided to stay in Newton with one of our aunts. And Newton at the time, it's really different now, but at the time it was predominantly white. I want to say like 95%, if not more. It was really like a white neighborhood. And so for most of my, I think, middle school, so when I came, I was entering 6th grade. And then when I left Newton, I went through middle school and high school there. So it was up until 12th grade that I left Newton. to go to college. And so from 6th until 12th grade, I think if you had to sum me up in a sentence, it would just be trying to fit in. Like that was the constant thing on my mind at the time. And because the area was predominantly white, what fitting in to me at the time meant becoming more white.
Yeah.
And so that was the experience. I remember little things like whenever I had to call my parents to pick me up, like after school, I would be like whispering, like, "Barry don't come, Barry don't come." Like, I didn't want anyone to know that I was from somewhere else. I knew that, like, because of how I look, obviously.
Yeah.
They would know that, like, you know, either my parents were from somewhere else, but that would have been the perfect scenario, because even the Asian kids in my class were most of the cases was their parents were first generation immigrants, and then they were born in the States.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And so that was what I tried to be. Obviously, I couldn't be white because I can't look white.
Yeah.
But I tried really hard to kind of give people the impression that, like, oh, my parents immigrated here. I was born here, and, like, there's nothing weird about me. Kind of like that. Yeah. So I was trying to be that for, like, the longest time. And just hiding things like, you know, usually the Asian kids that were born here, at least at my school, didn't speak too much of their mother's tongue.
Yeah.
So I, like, try my best to hide the fact that I was fluent in Vietnamese. Like, that was not something I was proud of at all. And so anytime I needed to speak to my parents, I would, like, do it in secret. And at the time I didn't realize, but that became, like, one of the major factors that I think begin to shift my relationship with my family. We kind of started shifting away from each other a lot, because I started to stop wanting to speak Vietnamese. And if anything, I wanted to not be fluent anymore, because, you know, the image that I was trying to be was the Asian American kid that was born here. And so I think one of my, I like thinking back to that time, like I said, I haven't revisited the time in a while. And just thinking back, like, the thing that I think stood out to me the most, the memory, was just, like, whispering on the phone, talking to my parents.
Yeah.
So I didn't want people to know I spoke Vietnamese.
I guess, where did that idea of fitting in come from? Because I feel like initially, like, you would just be yourself, like, and then did some other dumb kid make a comment, or like where did the fitting in thought come from?
Yeah, you're right. I think it is hard to say now, I feel like. But I think I truly, like you said, like, it would just, like, kids would just be kids, right? They would just be themselves. And I remember, like, 6th grade, first year, I was very much myself. I probably, like, first few days or something like that. First week of school, I was very much myself. I wear the most, like, outrageous things. Like, you can imagine, like, bright hot pink.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember, like, walking and being really confident at first. But then I think slowly it was kind of the lack of friends that I was making, and the cool kids, you know. I feel like, I don't know, I just think at that age, all that mattered to you was school. Like, all you had was school. The school environment, the friends, the people, the teachers. Like, that was all that was your life, basically, right? So at some point, and I feel like everyone, like, even now, like, we try to fit in, you know what I mean? It's just that when you're older, you just have more out there to branch out. Like, you can move cities, whichever city's more your vibe, that kind of thing. You can move countries. But at such a young age, like, all you had was Newton. Like, Newton, middle school. There are 2 middle school in Newton, like, or however many, I don't know. But like
Yeah.
the area I stayed in,
Yeah.
it's not like I had a choice.
Yeah.
So when you put someone in somewhere, like I feel like it's just human nature to want to fit in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like it's nice to like have friends.
Right.
And when you see other kids like coming into school like really happy, like saying hi to everyone, and then they know them,
Yeah.
that kind of you want to feel visible
Yeah.
in some way, right? And
Right.
very much I think at the beginning, like I said, I would wear like the most outrageous thing. So I did stand out. Like I wasn't invisible, but I wasn't standing out in a good way, if that makes sense. like I don't know. At some point, I think I internalized like the look I would get at the cafeteria. It wasn't like, oh wow, she's cool. It was like, what is she wearing? Yeah, it's just funny to say that now because like I feel like I would still wear the weirdest thing. Not weird, it's just I'm just myself, you know? But I feel so much more confident.
Yeah.
Like I'd show up at a conference wearing pink and I would just be like,
Yeah, this is me.
That's me. And maybe I get looks, but like it doesn't bother me anymore, you know? It's crazy. Yeah, now I'm reflecting back and it's just it just seems so silly, but at the same time like every kid go through that. You know what I mean? Like it's unavoidable and yeah, like it's just how it is. I wish I could tell myself otherwise, but no, I don't think it could have gone any other way. Like it really couldn't. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, as kids and even in high school, like you just want to fit in. It's like psychologically, like we want to be part of, a tribe.
Yeah.
And if we're not part of a tribe, then that makes us unhappy because we're not fitting in with anyone else, and that's all that we care about. Being popular and all this stuff. I think that's on high school level. At the level that you were saying, at the age you were talking about, you were just trying to fit in, and obviously coming from a different country, it's like, how can you, like, what are you supposed to do? Right?
And by the way, I did not speak English at the time either, so I feel like that was like a huge thing as well. Like, yeah, it was wild. I still to this day remember like, I think it was my first math class.
Yeah.
Where I walked in and there was a girl. Her name is Summer. I don't think you guys will ever know who she is.
Summer, if you're watching this.
Summer, if you're watching this. And I remember she like, I forgot if she stood up or something, but she waved at me and she was the only one. Like I walked into class. So I used to be escorted by like a ESL teacher because I didn't speak any English, so they needed to kind of help me in some way.
Yeah.
So usually I would walk in class like not with everybody else, but with the teacher. And sometimes usually like when everyone's already settled down, and I think this was like my first day or maybe first week of school or something. Either way, I walked in, everyone was already settled down, and then the teacher was saying something. I don't know what she said. But it probably was an introduction from the vibe I was gathering.
Yeah.
And then Summer was like,
hi.
like that. And I was like, and like nobody else said anything. So like, oh my God, like till this day, I remember Summer and like, I think it was 7th grade or 8th grade.
Yeah.
We were still obviously in the same school. When I could speak English then. I remember like telling Summer, I was like, by the way, like really shyly. By the way, like back then when you said hi to me, like that meant so much to me.
Yeah, of course.
And like, yeah, she was really nice. She was a nice girl. Yeah. So cute. Yeah.
I mean, it just shows like that one little act of kindness goes a long way.
Goes such a long way.
And like, it's just one small thing, and it's carried with you to like your lifetime.
Literally till this day.
That's so crazy. And speaking of pink, sorry, I forgot to say this in the beginning, but this is why I wore pink today in honor of Lynn.
I didn't realize. I'm so sorry,
It's okay.
I appreciate it so much.
Of course.
Oh my God.
And then another thing is, I try to bring in a new Funko Pop or whatever Funko Pop I have to kind of like either describe the person. Like I know there was a time where you liked Blackpink.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't have like Lisa Funko Pop, so I tried to buy a K-pop one instead. And I bought Jungkook out, so kind of did that for you.
Love Jungkook still.
Yes.
Second place in my heart,
Okay.
but V has the first.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
No, I still appreciate it though.
So going back to kind of your story and how your experience was at a younger age and immigrating here, I guess what were like the American nuances that you had to like learn? Do you know what I mean? Like kind of like like quote unquote American ways.
American ways. I think okay. Like what it was for me back when I was young?
Yeah.
Or do you mean what is it for me like now?
No, back then.
Okay, because I feel like I would answer them quite differently. I think, dude, back then, honestly, I had no idea. Like me trying to figure that out. I think to me at the time, and keep in mind this was like I was very young. Okay, I think to me at the time was like, being smart wasn't cool.
Yeah.
Being good at math, who does that? That's very not American of me. Like, not giving a shit about like teachers was like American. Cause yeah, I oh my god, this was so funny. But I think for the longest time, I think for like at least the couple first months, I used to like bow to my teachers. Yeah.
Wow.
Still, because I was like,
Yeah.
what the like.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what am I doing? You know, because that's the thing in Vietnam, and there's a lot of emphasis on being respectful to your teachers. So yeah, and then until some point, like my the best teacher ever, Miss Miller. She was my ESL teacher, and she was with me like throughout middle school. She was like, at some point she was like, Lynn, like, stop bowing to me, like.
Like it's starting to get weird.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So then after like a month, I was like, okay, I stopped doing that. But I like would pick up that the kids would like feel so comfortable with like talking back to teachers, and I was like. Or like if they didn't do their homework, they would just be like, "Oh yeah, I didn't do it," and I was like, "Oh."
And your secret is
wild.
like,
I was like, "Okay, taking notes."
don't do homework.
Be cool about it. Yeah, like little things like that. I was like, "Oh my god, that was wild." But I think that was something like I picked up, but I never like could do because I just didn't have it in me.
Within you, yeah.
Didn't have it in me.
Yeah. Which is why you're in the PhD program. That's why. This is why you're in there.
We're still here. But I think, I guess the little things that I was like, oh, that's American, and I could pick up was speaking with no accent, obviously. Like, that was something I worked really hard towards, subconsciously. And each time someone was like, oh my God, Lynn, like, I didn't know you had to learn English. Like, you have no accent. I was like, oh. I was so happy.
Yeah.
And I think one other thing for me was like also hiding my parents' like background, like their jobs, their occupation. I would almost always like never ever want to bring that up, and that was because for more context, Newton is a very wealthy town. So almost every person's parents I meet would either be like a professor at BU, Harvard, lawyer, doctor of some sort. And my parents, my mom works at a nail salon, and my dad was retired at the time. So I was like, yeah, we're never bringing up parents, never ever. And also sleepover was a big deal that I was like fighting my parents about, because I was like, this makes me American. Let me sleep over. So that was a big deal. Those were the things that I like could control and I could let go of at the time. Schooling wasn't it, but I was like, okay, fine, I can sacrifice not ever telling them about my parents, that kind of thing. And also having a side job. That was very not American of me. Like, you know, like when over break or summer break or like the weekend or whatever, like the kids would be at camp, at like doing sport team, whatever. I was working. Yeah, so that information never got. But it was really hard to hide because I worked at my mom nail salon, which was also in Newton, which all the girls went there. So it was really, really hard to hide. But like, yeah, it was something like I never ever brought up. Like, and if I had to, like, I would just like brush it off. Like things would happen, like, you know, the girls at school and like their parents, their mom would like come to the salon, and of course they would recognize me. Like I'm not that invisible. And then they would say hi. Like of course, you know, they were nice. Like I don't think any of them thought any like mean things. It was just me being super self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, how can you not be, you know, like, you're like the girl and then like her mom be sitting on the chair, like, and you and your mom are like doing, even position wise, like it just makes you think. So that was tough. And like when the weeks start, of course, like, you know, them being nice, being like, oh Lynn, like, I didn't know you like work at the nail salon, and I'm like, I wish you never ever bring that up ever.
You're like, I think you're mistaken me with someone else.
No, I wish I wish I could have done that. But yeah, so I would be like, yeah, like I work there sometimes, and like I would just try to like brush it off, you know. Although I think like half the time, like they thought it was like a nice thing.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, oh, like cool, you have, you know, a side job that, you know, you do nails, like that's so pretty. But yeah, like at the time, oh my God, I could not take that as a compliment, like ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was one of the like very not American of me to do. have a side job at 12.
I mean, I think it's just like all these new mannerisms you had to like learn is definitely a whole battle in itself,
God,
right?
yeah.
Like, especially with what you talked about, yeah, I can imagine how like you're like, oh, this is weird. Like, why wouldn't you do X, Y, and Z? Because this is, you know, this is where you learn those things while you were in Vietnam. But what's a funny thing is I don't know if I told you this, but I also was in ESL at one point. But I was born here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that happened to my cousin. I was really surprised. I was like, wait.
Yeah, me too. I was like,
that made no
wow,
sense.
my English must be so bad. I got with ESL and I was like, okay.
Oh my God.
But I thought it was because I told my teacher that my family is from Laos. But I think I mistakenly said I'm from Laos.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think she might have been like, oh, well, we should probably put you in ESL then.
Actually, I don't know if that's true, Randy, because all of my cousins who was from Newton, like from the aunt that I live with, they all were put through ESL too, and all of them were born here.
Here, okay.
And I think it just, because I think you were also from a predominantly like white town, right?
Yes, correct, yeah.
So I think it's that context, and then giving us like having parents from like another country, and them just probably thinking we would be speaking that at home growing up, which is what my niece is doing. So I can see why, like, without understanding further, like they would want to put you in ESL.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was just like, damn, my English is so bad. I was like, jeez.
It's my first language.
So going into, I know you said that you were straying away, as you got older, were straying away from your culture, and then that kind of put a divide between you and your family.
Yeah.
Can you like go into detail about, you know, what happened, how that created a divide, and how that impacted you?
Yeah. So I think that is one of the two, I would say, biggest trauma in my life up till this moment. And the other trauma I kind of worked over already, but this, with the whole family thing, I am still getting over. So the rift that it made was huge. And I think having nobody there to guide me, to talk through, and it was just me and my little brain at the time, and my parents and their, obviously mature brain, but just not, we just couldn't connect, you know, like they're very Vietnamese, obviously. When they came, they were well into their like late 40s, early 50s. And so they just couldn't understand what my brain was going through.
Yeah.
And my little brain just could not comprehend what I was going through as well.
Yeah.
And like till this day, I'm just like in awe about how big of a rift that made in like our relationship and my relationship with my parents, my family as a whole, actually. So it was crazy because it happened so slowly, but it happened over such a long period of time without me having the knowledge to even know that it was happening, that I let it happen for so long, that it got to this point. And it's been like 10 years and it's still yeah, like it's still something I'm still trying to work out. Like I'm nowhere. It's gotten better in the last, I think I've made like some few like huge progress step towards healing, whatever that even looks like. I don't even know at this point. Yeah, but just the fact that like, oh my God, like I'm still working on it. It's crazy to me. And so, you know, like back then when my focus and my only focus was how can I fit in? How can I be a little whiter? A little less fluent in Vietnamese? I would not really talk to my family, even when I went home. Because at some point, you know, with all these things like, oh, I want to wear short to school because all the girls were wearing shorts in the summer. I want to wear like tank top because that's what the girls were wearing. I want to sleep over because that's what, you know, they do. Like once, it's like I get invited into this like girlfriend group and I'm so excited. And they're all having a sleepover like this Friday. And I'm the only one that couldn't be there. I was like, what do you mean? So like things like that. And my parents would be like, why are you wearing short to school? Like these are short shorts, you know? And our school had no dress code.
Oh, okay.
So the girls were like popping off, you know? And so they're like, why are you wearing like short to school? And like, yeah, like why are you like hanging out with friends like almost every day? And I'm just like, but like that's what my friends are doing. Like I'm in this friend group and like I kind of need to like catch up, you know what I mean? I can't like miss out on a day. Otherwise like the inside jokes I won't get it, you know what I mean? So I don't know. That was like the focus at the time. And to me it was kind of crazy because I thought as long as I kept my grades up, like everything else I should be able to do, right? Like, okay, if I'm hanging out with all these people and my grades are like slipping, then I understand. But like again, school was something I could not let go of. So I thought like my parents should understand that, you know, as long as I have my grades up, like I should be able to do these things. And to me, those things were so normal. But now I think back about them, like sleeping over. My parents have never met any of these people. And of course they have not met any of these people's parents. So they're like, what?
Like why am I letting my daughter go to someone else's house?
So I get it. But to me, I was fighting for my life to like, you know, fit in.
Have a social life.
And have a social life. And so much arguments between me and my parents, to the point where like, it was like my mom has this thing where she thinks she's very lenient actually, which I see now. Like I think for an Asian immigrant mother, she is quite lenient. And she's very big on like doing what everyone else is doing. Like going with, what's the saying?
Status quo.
The status quo. She's very, very big on that. And so that was like my way of like getting to do these things, is if I can prove to her that everyone else is doing it, because she does, I think, just naturally, she is someone who followed the status quo. But I think she did have an understanding at the time that my daughter is an immigrant. She's not fitting in if she doesn't follow the status quo.
Right.
So she was quite, which I didn't realize at the time, but now I do know that she does have that in mind in the back of her head. So one time, she was like, okay, your dad's gonna drive me and you to school. I'm gonna see what the other kids are wearing. And then we'll see. So after arguing with her like for forever about wearing shorts and stuff like that, she came to school that day and she saw all the girls in the shorty shorts. And after that day, she was like, fine. So she let it go. So it's things, but there are certain things like, again, sleeping over. Now I see the dangers of it. I understand. Certain things like that she did not let go. And I was just like confused. I was like, wow, I need this. Yeah, so I think all that bickering kind of back and forth and her thinking that she's so lenient and me seeming ungrateful because I keep pushing for more, right? That kind of like drove a divide in us slowly. That was kind of the beginning. And then after that, as I became more American, for lack of a better term, sorry, I kind of stopped talking to her. She was always my everything growing up. Like
best friend, yeah.
Like I talked to her about everything. And she was always like, she's the kind of mother that's like very protective of her children. Anything she could do for us, she would do for us. If she could help us out in any way to make our lives easier, she would. So that's the kind of person she is. And when we came here, she completely lost the ability to like help me in any ways, right? Because of language barrier.
Yeah.
And so this was something I kind of came to understand later, not at the time. But while I'm in school, kind of worrying, thinking about all these things, you know, learning about like what's the culture, you know, what movies do I need to watch to be able to like talk to these people, fit in. My mom's worried about something else. And it just, at some point we were living in like two different worlds. And I felt like she couldn't understand me anymore. Like, and it's part of like, oh, why would I tell her this story if she's not going to understand? But also, she's so tired from working. Why the she have time to sit down and hear me rant about, I don't know, some whack ass thing that happened at school, you know? So it was that guilt and also the feeling of like, why would I say it if she wouldn't understand anyways? That kind of stopped me from talking to her completely. Like, and this continue on for like years and years. And that's kind of what led us to a period of time where we just didn't have any connections anymore. Like, and at some point when I looked back, I couldn't talk to her anymore. I didn't know how to. Yeah. Yep. And so now I'm still kind of working on how to talk to her again, how to connect. Because the gap just keeps getting wider.
Yeah.
As I go deeper into academia and like learn more, like the gap between my parents and I just keep widening. But I feel like right now I'm making more of an effort to try to connect in some ways. And the effort's been paying off for sure.
Yeah.
But I think there was really like, honestly, 3-4 years straight of me not really having a conversation with my parents. Yeah, and that was really lonely.
Yeah. I know just hearing that is all tough. We will take a break, and we'll talk more about kind of like just how that relationship is now, and maybe get a little bit deeper into to what you were feeling at that time. Well, welcome back, everyone. So we just talked about how there was a period of time that you and your parents had a barrier and you guys were drifting apart, but now you're improving on those. And I just want to comment, like, I can kind of resonate with that. And I feel like a lot of people in high school at a very young age can resonate with that because they want to fit in, they want to do these things, but their parents they're like, well, why are you, like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, it's an understanding of taking two perspective and trying to understand each other that doesn't really, just keeps butting heads, you know what I mean? And I grew up in, as you know, predominantly white high school too. And like, I wanted to do things also similar to you, like sleepovers, and they're like, I don't know them. Like, I need to hop on a phone call with them because I don't know who they are. Like, you know, stuff like that. Which, and at the time I was like, why are you making such a big fuss about this? Like, just let me go. You know what I mean? But I think it's also like growing up in Asian American culture, like that is a thing. Like that, they want to make sure that you're safe. But at the time, we just think they're just trying to be stubborn and hard and stuff like that. But also, there were just things that I guess I noticed growing up, just being around like quote unquote my white friends, that was like, oh, why can't I have that too? And something I think I really struggled with is, you know, why don't my parents like say, I love you to me? You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I feel like that is, at the time I was like, when I was in high school or middle school, I was like, yeah, like it's be weird if my mom said I love you to me.
Oh my God.
But when I went over to my other friend's house and they were saying that to each other, I was like, oh, that's like a love I guess I wish I had. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
Because my parents don't know how to really express it. Besides, now what I now understand is like my mom asking me, you know, did you eat? Do you want to eat? You know, like those are the ways that she would show me love, and I didn't realize at that time. Like you said, ungrateful.
Ungrateful.
Yeah,
That's
but
what we are.
exactly. But and like also just like having some of my friends called their parents by their first names. And I was like, I couldn't. I was
Till this day,
yeah,
like
no.
every parents I meet is Mr. and Mrs. or I just do not say anything.
Yeah.
I never ever use the first name. That will not be me. Oh my God, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but to go back to your story, how are you kind of amending that relationship with your parents? And what surprised me is that you say like there was a language barrier like at that time still, and I was really surprised because every time I'm with you and you're calling your parents, like obviously you're very fluent.
I'm very fluent.
Yeah, but I'm very surprised that at a time that really wasn't the case.
I know, and like now like when I started looking back, that was when I was shook, because I was like, Lynn, you must have had to like stop talking for such a long period of time that now you're struggling with Vietnamese.
That's crazy.
Like, and that's when I tell you, I'm like, oh my God, like in the moment you don't realize how long you've stopped talking to them for until it's already done. I'm trying to tell them a story and I'm like, I was just like, And then that's when I realized that like, oh my God, I think that was one of the first thing that really like was that for me. It's like, Lynn, there needs to be something done about this.
Yeah.
Because you cannot speak Vietnamese anymore. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I think as soon as I realized that, it was then my first thing that I tried to do to kind of amend it was talk to them more. And I think being at UMass, when I found like our little group, like the Asian American community, helped me so much. The time that I roomed with Mish and Matt, where I saw them so comfortably speak Cantonese, even though, sorry, no shade to Mish and Matt, they can't speak Cantonese as well as I can speak Vietnamese, but they're just going off. So I'm like, okay, like it made me feel like, oh, okay, I should be better. I should feel more comfortable speaking my own language. And so that time it really helped me kind of try to start reaching out again, just starting to like just speak and like, but still at the time I couldn't say anything more than just like random stories, you know. Not that I couldn't say, sorry, I couldn't share.
Yeah.
Because I was still very much in that mindset that they wouldn't understand if I share anything further than like, oh, this guy did something funny today, you know. But it was my first step in this process of kind of reconnecting with them again. Is just talk.
Yeah.
Just the silliest story I think they will enjoy, I will tell them. So slowly my Vietnamese got better again.
I mean, I mean, actually, you're the determinant of that. I don't know why. Me would say, yeah, your Vietnamese is like, okay.
It's okay now. Yeah, but like literally still till this day, I still am trying to do that. You know, me talking to them about my work, about science.
Yeah.
That's another like separate language on its own. Okay.
Yeah.
So I try my best to Google Translate it, so that I can talk to them about things that are more meaningful to me. It's not just passing by stories.
Yeah.
So we're still on that. And I think the next thing that I tried to do was talk to my mom more, open up to her more about the emotional things that I was going through and I am going through. She has always been my rock. Like, I am her.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I try not to be, I am her. Like, so I know her, she knows me, and obviously I know we're different in a lot of ways, but at the end, like, I get my emotional side from my mom, I think, and my empathetic side, and yeah, so I try to kind of open up to her more. She's kind of like my gateway into opening up to my family more about like my emotions, things that are deeper, right, than just surface stories. And this kind of like ties in with the other trauma, that the other big T that I was telling you about. Once I kind of start getting the ball rolling and like determining that I want to build back that relationship with them, everything just had to happen. You know, like the ugly, the things that I've been avoiding to talk to them about, like all of that had to come out because I just knew that it had to come out for us to get to the other side of things. And it was not fun. Like it was not just like, oh, one conversation and then we're like, yay.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was years, and I literally mean years, like 4 years. Okay, 4 years of college, 1 year like senior year, half of junior year, and then even after college when we still struggle. So straight up 7-8 years.
Wow.
7 to 8 years of us drifting apart. And I had to now kind of deal with the damage, the aftermath of 7 to 8 years of trauma, you know, and it's a lot, and it's not gonna be through 1 or 2 conversation and we're like, yay. It wasn't that, and but those 1 or 2 conversation was kind of like the kickstart of everything, and it did a lot, but it didn't do everything, obviously, and I think even now, like my mom and I are still kind of trying to figure out that together. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy that it's going the direction that you want to.
Yep.
I'm very proud of you to even initiate that relationship again, because it's hard.
Thank you.
I can resonate with that because that's actually something I've been working on too, like creating a better relationship with my parents.
Yeah.
Because at the time, how I felt, especially with my family dynamic at a young age, that I really didn't have that immediate family love. There was a lot of, I won't go into it, but there was a lot of like struggles in terms of like different views between like my parents and my brother, and like seeing that at a young age.
God, yeah.
And then I was like, F this, like I just want to escape. Like I don't want to be, near, like, in this household, like going through all, like hearing all this turmoil and stuff like that. So that's why I went to UMass too, but when I went to UMass Amherst, I didn't really talk to my parents as much, and I didn't realize maybe until now how much that probably hurt them.
Yeah.
Because they were like, oh, like, I want to make sure you're good, like, you know,
Yeah.
I know you're only like this many hours away, but
Yeah.
you know, we want to check in on our son and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So now I'm actually talking to my parents like a lot more and trying to resonate with them, trying to hear about their stories, like, you know, what they were doing when they were young and, and stuff like that. And it is a hard conversation. Like at first it was just like, so, you're good? They're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Okay, bye.
Period. Period, that's it.
Yeah. But now I'm like actually having, I guess, learning from my mom how to speak Lao a lot better.
Oh my god, I'm so proud of you.
I'm not the greatest, but
so
it's getting there. It's getting there, and I know I took that for granted at a young age because of how
Truly.
much that can help me later on, and how I can actually like, you know, talk to my grandma versus looking at my mom being like, oh, can you tell her like I'm in school doing this, and this.
Oh my god, yeah.
So it's a lot to have to those conversations, and it takes a lot of years to build. But as long as you keep having that conversation with your parents, like treat them as like, you know, they actually are just people and not like your authoritative figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you establish like such a better connection with them, and then the fact that you're also speaking about your emotions too is very courageous, especially growing up in you know in the culture that we grew up in. I guess how did that feel to talk about your emotions with your family? Because I just feel like that was something that was very hard, at least for me growing up. I don't know if that was hard for you too.
Yeah. It's extremely difficult. I think even with my mom, who is very receptive to these emotional talks, it's hard with her. So when I try to kind of have these talk with like my sister-in-law, my brother, it's even like more difficult. Oh, jeez. But I think that's why like my mom will always be my safe space.
Yeah.
I think even though she like might not understand the words I'm saying, like literally the words I'm saying, and sometimes like I don't know what this word is in Vietnamese. But still like I think my emotions always like come through to her, and it feels so freeing.
Yeah.
Being able to just and I hope this is not TMI, but I think the most like memorable conversation with her recently I had was not sunshine and butterfly like you would think, like we're not just like oh yeah and then we hug. No,
Yeah.
it was me screaming, like screaming at the top of my lungs, like say sorry, like say sorry to me, like it was not, you know what I mean, it's not some, yeah, it was not like beautiful. We gotta get tissues.
I do have to get tissues.
Thank you, Randy. It was that, but oh my god, I never felt so free after that. But I also have to acknowledge that was not easy for my mom to hear.
Yeah.
And never in my life I would think I would be demanding like a sorry from someone who gave me so much already.
Yeah.
But at that time there was just so much hurt like building up that I like sorry mom, I had to get that out of my chest. I had to do it. Otherwise I just felt like I couldn't move on, you know?
Yeah.
Like she and I just couldn't move past it. And it's such a mixed feeling. Like immediately it feels so nice after, because it's kind of like you're literally like physically letting all of that out. And it was finally like me being able to say what I needed to hear from her to move past. Because the whole time it was just like hinting at it, like I was hurt, like da da da, and you know, like they don't say sorry, like we don't do sorry.
Yeah.
Just like we don't do I love you, we also don't do sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, but I think this is pretty common in our Asian culture in general, that for the parental figure to say sorry to the child, because it's really hierarchical, right?
Yeah, of course.
For someone kind of like up in the hierarchy to say sorry for someone like lower, it's a big deal. It usually doesn't happen.
No.
And so for me to kind of be able to finally like stop beating around the bush and just like, I need to hear that sorry from you.
Yeah.
And being able to say it in that way, like I said, the way I scream, like top of my lungs, like say sorry, was so freeing.
Yeah.
Immediately after, it was like, oh my God. Like my chest feels lighter. But then probably a day after is when like all of that I just told you, like how usually parents would never say sorry to their kids and how it must look for my mother. Of course, I don't feel that way. That's the American side of me. But I don't feel that way. Like say, for example, saying sorry to my little niece now. Like I don't feel any heavy burden of some sort. But me trying to put myself in their shoes, I cannot have, like I couldn't imagine like the kind of, I don't even know. I know it's a bad feeling.
Yeah.
The bad feeling that my mom was going through. And my dad, like, watching that.
Yeah.
He was probably like... so I cannot imagine, like, the pain that caused them to kind of have to say sorry. And also how it was, like... I think till this day, it's just... They did their best, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, and I think to them it's like, unless we intentionally like harm you in any ways, like a sorry is just such a big deal. I don't know, I feel like it's even more of a big deal than it is the I love you. I don't know if that's true, but at least that's how it is in my family. Like, both my parents are very like prideful. So I think the sorry to them was probably even harder than if I had forced them to say I love you.
Yeah.
So that weighed heavily on me. But either way, I see my mom doing that as her really getting out of her comfort zone to try to make this effort in connecting with me, right? As hard as it is for me, she's also putting in the work.
Yeah.
And as much as it like kind of eats me to think about that back then, we couldn't move on if that didn't happen. Yeah.
Well, the fact that you had that difficult conversation, and your mom had a choice too. Like she could have, she could have not said sorry, and then that relation. But she knew what that cost as a relationship with her daughter, and
I think so.
I mean, I agree with you. I think there's just a lot of pride and ego from our parents about like saying sorry for what? Like, I gave you I gave you everything.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's also just teaching your mom about like, how a relationship with you is gonna work, and how it's okay to say sorry or to be vulnerable because you're doing the same to her, right?
Yeah.
But again, I'm very proud of you to just have those conversations and have those difficult conversations to continue a relationship that you want, that you're building, like, and part of the life that you want, like, this is part of it, and this is what you have to do in order to get it. I think just reflecting on, this trauma and the relationship with your parents, what is, I guess, the biggest thing that you learned from it through all those, mental struggles and obstacles that was in your path?
Yeah. I think I learned I think my parents were my first lesson of it's okay to, like, I think they taught me how to be understanding of the other side. And that is super, super important to me now, because of what I do and because of not just my job, but also my, like, a big part of me is, I feel like I'm very, like, politically active in some ways. And I think that, like, what they taught me is, like, people are the way they are because of certain reasons. Like, how they grew up, the environment they were in, that kind of thing. They were the first examples that taught me how to be more empathetic in that way. Now I can kind of almost always find a reason or, like, understand why people think a certain way, do a certain things. Usually this applies to people who, like, do things opposite of me, right? Obviously, if they do it like me, then I wouldn't have a problem. But yeah, so I almost always find a reason, and I can see, like, I am very open to sit down and, like, hear the other side. And my parents were the first people that kind of taught me that, and that in most cases it's okay. Like understanding that it's crazy. Like, when they were in their 20s, they were, like, the midst of the Vietnam War, you know what I mean? The kind of, almost the end, but they literally lived through wartime. And then now me, I'm doing my PhD. Like, it's just such different lifestyles that we grew up in. How could we not be different? How could we not think differently and be differently? You know what I mean? So yeah, they're, like, my first example of how to kind of see that from the other side, see that from the other person, be understanding. But they're also the first example of how, at the end of the day, what you need is what you need. What you want is still what you want. You can carry that understanding anywhere, everywhere, with anyone. But it's still, at the end of the day, once you have that understanding, but you still need an apology from them, that is what it is. You know what I mean? Even with that understanding of the other side, if at the end of the day you still are not okay with that behavior, that's where your boundary still is, then that is what it is for you. And I think my relationship with them, my struggle with them, the very first example that, like, taught me that I still now, like, very much carry in my day-to-day, like, life.
Yeah, I feel like you were really good at setting boundaries and making sure you let people know, like, what is okay with you and what it's not, and if they want to cross that boundary, like, okay, it's fine, but just know that I'm not, like, I'm gonna tell you how I feel, and I'm not going to continue with, you know, whatever conversation that you're having at that time.
Yeah, and it is something I took me a really long time to build. You know what I mean? Becoming the highest version of myself includes that. But always I remind myself to do that with grace, right? That I'm like, you can't do this to me. You know, if you continue to do this and cross my boundary, I'm sorry, we can't be friends. But that doesn't mean I walk away from that friendship or relationship with, like, hatred or, like, you know, like, you're stupid or, like, like negativity, basically. No, I always walk away with understanding. And I think that's something, if I wish people could understand about me, is that, like, I might seem harsh, but I don't want you to think that I walk away not understanding your side. I always do. I really, like, that's something I really pride myself in doing, is that I will always try to understand where you're coming from. But at the end, I will walk away if I have to and if I need to for myself. And but that doesn't mean I don't have love for you. You know, I don't have respect for you. That kind of thing. I wish if that's one thing I wish people knew about me, it's that, you know. And my parents taught me that. So.
I think if I could pivot to, I guess, kind of like your high school days, and, you know, you said growing up predominantly white. I guess, how was that experience for you? Because from my end, I was one of 4 or 5 Asians in a school of 800.
Yeah.
And I think like yourself, like I was trying to, fit in, and I wouldn't say I really hid my culture. Like I'm very proud of being what my ethnicity is, and also like being around also like in an Asian American community. I'm not sure if you've encountered a lot of Lao people, but I feel like
I did not.
yeah,
Not
but I feel like
familiar.
at UMass and at school, like, unless it was my family in Connecticut, but like I didn't come across like with a lot of Lao people, so like kind of take pride in that.
Yeah.
Like even in middle school, like when my grandfather passed away, I like went with the whole tradition of like shaving my head and becoming a monk for like the weekend. But obviously, like I still need to go to school, so I have a bald head and all that stuff. Like, and I'm like, do I just show up? Like,
Were people so confused? Like, were people ask you what happened?
yeah, people were like, what happened? And then I
you
told
would
them,
explain?
yeah, explain like, oh,
Okay.
like this is like tradition, and they're like, oh, okay. Like nobody would really like give me or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I think growing up as the quote unquote token Asian and being the model minority, I think that's the right term.
Yeah.
It felt really different because I feel like for me, like I had a lot of insecurities because I wasn't white, and that the people that I liked in high school, that like, oh, they would probably want someone who is that looks
Let's talk
that
about
doesn't look like
it.
me.
Let's talk about that.
That was a little bit my experience, but
Yeah.
if you can share just a little bit how that was, being one of the few Asians in your school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, I have to bring this up because it's such good timing, but do you watch The Bachelorette?
I did not. I've seen clips.
But you know how like Jen Tran is the Bachelorette this season, and she's Vietnamese, and let me try to not give any spoiler away, but all I have to say is that I think I wasn't the only person that was quite triggered by this season. Maybe I have to spoil it a little bit, but sorry, Randy and the viewers. But it was basically kind of what Jen experienced, which I think I've seen a lot of videos actually of people being like, yeah, like for Asian American girls, this was something we constantly dealt with while growing up in like a predominantly like not Asian place, is that we will always feel like we come second to someone else.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much like, I would say my experience, like back in high school. Middle school, I didn't care about boys, but in high school when everyone was like dating or like, I don't know, have some sort of crush in some way, like immediately I always felt like if there was someone in the friend circle that obviously didn't look like me, looked more like the predominant race, that they would always get the boy. And I would always kind of come second, unless I'm like, I don't know, unless my personality, like unless I was like funniest like girl ever, which Kelvin would tell you I'm not. Like
Kelvin's our partner, by the way.
Personality is like not off the chart. So yeah, like when it comes to that, like it was just like insecurities, you know what I mean? And I know that this is not everyone's experience, but I will speak my truth, which is that at the time there was a long period of time, like 4 to 5 years of me chasing white boys. Because that was the trophy. I don't know how else to say this. But yeah, like it was like, oh, if I could, go out with a white boy, that means I'm finally American enough.
Yeah.
I'm finally cool enough. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, the more you're saying it, you're like, why did I even say that?
I'm gonna bury myself after this podcast. But no, I think, actually no, it feels freeing to say that, because as much as, like, it's so embarrassing to say it now.
Yeah.
But that was my truth, like, and I hope whoever like resonate with it, like I hope like it's okay. It's not that embarrassing. We all went through
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to have to beat around the bush and say that like there really was a period of time when I was like white worshipping to like another level.
Yeah.
But thank God we're not there anymore. But as you know, like not healthy for me. Obviously, like feeling like your Asianness will always be what put you back. Then of course you don't want your Asianness
To show.
to show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has huge kind of. It was the kind of reason I think. It was one of the main reason. Like again, I deny my culture and like I just didn't want anything to do with it. I wasn't proud of anything, Randy. Like at the time, like I really was not proud of anything. Yeah, and I think also too at the time, like because my parents were so busy working, like, you know, living paycheck to paycheck, we kind of stopped celebrating like that New Year and like the little like Vietnamese holiday, you know, like that I used to celebrate when we were in Vietnam. Like we kind of stopped celebrating that, and the fact that we live in such a predominantly white area, there was no. It's not like Dorchester where like you know there's events happening, so that on top of like me just trying to be white, like culture was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a lot of insecurities because I always felt like I wasn't enough and like I needed to be more. Like, oh, if I'm not gonna look white, then I have to like work on my personality, you know? Like I don't know, I have to get all the inside jokes, like I have to be funny and like it's just so much pressure. And at the time, oh my god, when college application hit was another, oh my god, another like train wreck. Then it was like what do I need to do to get into college, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, again, like no guidance whatsoever. There was a little bit guidance, but still like just nobody that looked like me that could guide me. And so it was like, oh my god, what are the other kids doing? You know what I mean? Like it was crazy. Like at some point, because like I mentioned, like Newton, a lot of the kids I were friends with, their parents were like doing big jobs. You know what I mean? And at the time, I felt like that really helped them, either with their application or just like actually have an into college. Like some parents even worked on admission, so like how can I compete? And like at some point, like when I realized I found out this thing where I don't even know if it's still true to this day, but apparently if your parents work in the school, you get like
a legacy discount.
Yeah, something like that, like money wise, right? Either it being completely free or some sort of discount.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe my mom should work as a janitor so I can get a discount. Like I was so serious about that because I was like, what can I do? There was no guidance for me, so all I could look up was other kids, other white kids. What were they doing? That I can be doing to get into school. So sport team, yeah, girl, not.
Okay, you cross that out.
But I did it. I forced myself into a swim team. And I was like, I've never been so miserable in my entire life. And like, okay, like theater, okay, like I wasn't good enough to be in theater. I joined a chorus thing. Like I was like, okay, singing we got, like dancing we have, sport, fine, like I'll do it. Extracurricular, like student council, catch me there. So I was just like looking at kids, like what were they doing? I copied it, you know. I'm like, oh, parents working at the school. Okay, my mom can be a janitor. Like, start application.
You start her application for her?
No, I did not.
And submitted it for her.
I really looked into it though. And yeah, like, oh my god. So it was just like the entire like 6 to 7 years of my like high school, and it was just me trying to be something I really wasn't. And, but I did work really hard. Like I worked really hard to be something that I wasn't. And when all of that didn't pay off, it was painful. Oh my god. Yeah. Like second depression. It was painful.
But you were doing all that to try and fit in.
I was doing all that to try to fit in, to try to, make my parents proud. To try to still, though I did not talk to them at the time, and I probably was so annoyed. Every time they say something, I was annoyed. Like, at that time, like, our relationship was really cracked. And so, but still, like, the immigrant daughter, I need to pay back in some way, right? And that to me was school.
Yeah.
So it was like me trying all of that to fit in and also to be a good daughter. The only way I knew how to.
Yeah.
And it was just so much like forcing myself to do things I just was not into. But you can't take it away from me that I worked hard. Like, that is one thing that like nobody could say otherwise. But you can imagine, like, when none of that worked out, it was devastating to me.
Yeah.
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 So, yeah, I guess just some of my experience, like, back in the days, it was just trying so hard, like, working so freaking hard to be something I did not want to be, or wasn't in the mental space to be, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break and we get a little bit more into it.
Please.
If you could, also, wait. I do want to say that I'm not saying that my high school experience was bad. You know, growing up in a predominantly white town, like, I'm grateful for my experience. I love all my friends from high school that I still keep in touch with. I think I wanted to make it a note that, like, these are the things that us as Asian Americans felt in that type of environment. Those insecurities and those worries and what we try to do to fit in. And, and yeah, I mean, just looking back now, when I said, like, oh, like, about insecurities about how I look and, like, you know, dating wise and all that stuff. When I look back at it now, I'm like, surprisingly, I still, like, even though I say all these things, I still had, like, a good amount of relationships in high school.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, but no matter what, I still had these feelings. Like, I was afraid to even tell whoever I was going to date that, like, or ask them out, because I was like, you probably think this other guy looks better than me, so, like, what's the whole point, you know?
Yeah.
But not everything is looks, of course. But that's the insecurity I had, and that's something that was driving me at that time.
Yeah. I mean, I want to say too, I mean, I met Mary, I met Lily, who are still, like, very beautiful people in my life in high school. So of course it wasn't, you know, all bad. But yeah, like, and it taught me a lot, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to share these sort of things, because I think even then, the lovely, nice people that I met in high school probably had no idea I was going through, like, these sort of thoughts. And again, they're just kids, right? They're just kids being kids, and they were lovely. They were kind people. But I think it's just really helpful to be able to share, just to raise awareness that, you know, hopefully people kind of are more conscious of who is in their surrounding, and maybe be a little, like, nicer, and just more empathetic. If someone at the time, like, bring this sort of talk up to me, like a fellow Asian kid or something, I would, like, oh my God, I would, like, cry and start, like, we'd be bestie. But
inner child things.
But I think the 5 Asians that were in the school, like, we didn't really talk about these things at all. If anything, we weren't really, like, even connected. So I think, and obviously I don't want to assume, but maybe they were going through similar things too, and we could have talked about it.
True.
So maybe, so I think it's good to bring awareness always to these sort of things people feel.
I guess if an Asian American came up to you, or maybe someone that immigrated from an Asian country, and they're like, hey, like, how did you navigate being in this type of environment? Like, what would you say to them?
I think I would say, try to find, like, a community. And I would also say, that I think the advice I would give them is kind of the uncomfort of not fitting in. It will always feel a lot better than the uncomfort of you forcing yourself to fit in and then doing things that you regret later. So either way, it's uncomfortable. But one uncomfort, it's better than the other.
Yes, true. That's like the saying, the pain of regret is far worse than the pain of trying and failing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. Although,
yeah, it's just a saying. I don't know how much.
yeah, I was like, I was trying, just at the wrong thing, but
yeah.
I was trying really hard.
No, fair.
Yeah, I guess just maybe trust yourself a bit more. I think you always know when you're in an environment that you're not.
Yeah.
Like things will, spike up, and don't ignore that, and.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like always run away from things you're uncomfortable about.
Yeah, of course not. No.
But I think like I think and just trust yourself a bit more. Don't ignore your inner voice of like, this is uncomfortable and this might not be worth it, and maybe you're right. And you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, just be uncomfortable, but maybe at the right thing.
Yeah. So I guess this is a good segue into our college days, because when I went to UMass, I still was kind of looking for an environment that was like my high school. And then the second semester, my freshman year, that's when I found my the Asian community. And honestly, it was just a huge shock to me. Because I was like,
Me too.
whoa,
Literally me too, Randy.
and what this is and that is and stuff like that, and I'm like, it was just a huge shock to me. But it honestly, I'm so glad that was part of my college experience. And that's honestly probably how I met you.
Yeah. No, exactly. That's how we're here. We are.
Yeah. Do you remember how we met? I don't remember.
I remember because that was how I met everyone else, Randy.
Oh, okay.
It was the same exact frat party where I discovered that other Asian people existed. But it all started, so I, like you, I went into high school ready for the same environment that I was in high school.
Yeah.
But this time I was like, no accent. None of these people were there with me in middle school, so they don't know who I am.
Yeah.
I was ready to
start a new life.
Shine. Be the white girl I was meant to be. But yeah, and then I went in and then I was like, oh shit. A completely different environment. And I was so happy to be there, because I think that was what helped me come in contact with not come in contact, but come into the comfort of my own culture again. And that's honestly priceless, priceless.
Yeah.
So how we met, I entered college super depressed, so sad. I couldn't, it was a dark time. Until I was kind of ready to okay, I think time for me to put that chapter behind. I can't be sad like this forever. So my first dance workshop.
Oh,
Yay!
okay.
Which at the time I still had no idea was dominated by Asian Americans. But love dancing always. So I was like, oh, it's a workshop. No biggie. But so much courage to go.
Yeah, of course.
And shout out to Mary, who literally held my hand, walked me to the gym, to the room. She dropped me off, and then she was just at the door, and she was checking on me for 5 minutes, making sure I had a friend. I said hi to. I had no friend, but I said hi to some random people and started talking. So she was like, okay, looks good. So she went out. Shout out to Mary.
That's so sweet.
It was so sweet. And I don't think, if she wasn't there, I think I would have walked halfway and probably walked back, because it was just really scary.
Yeah, no, it is. It is.
And so that was my first introduction to civilization again after being like really, really sad for a year. So yeah, first workshop taught by, I think, Ashley and Igor. Yeah.
Oh,
Ashley and Igor.
okay. Ashley and Igor are friends, by the way.
Yes, part of the gang.
Yeah.
And so yeah, first workshop. But I don't think I saw you there, Randy. I don't think we met there.
I don't think we met there. I was there.
You
but,
were? Okay.
But I don't think
Not
we had a
registered.
conversation at
Yeah.
the time, maybe. Yeah.
And so it was that night though, or the following night something. Forgive me, my timeline. Either way, someone at the dance told me, oh yeah, there's this frat party, like da da da. I was like, oh, frat party, okay, party.
Okay,
so I was like, I came back from the dance, by the way, I was terrible. And like,
you were probably fine.
I was like,
it's okay. I've been there. I've been the stiff before.
And I had no idea they were gonna film you at the end, so I was like, F my life. It was so funny. But either way, like, straight up no regret going there, because that really opened the door for me for what the rest of my college years looked like.
Yeah.
Meet these whackers that are now friends of mine.
Alright.
But yeah, so someone was like, oh yeah, this frat party, da da da. So I went home, I went back to my dorm, I was like, Mary, there's a frat party, we should go. And then she was like, okay, I'm down. So two of us held hand again. Like,
of course. You guys are literal twins.
Yeah,
People probably thought you guys were sisters.
went to the frat party and the rest was history. Me and Mary were party animals. And
Were you like experienced with parties before that? Because I know, I mean, coming from a Southeast Asian culture, like, were you just used to that stuff? But was that like was a party just like a little bit out of your comfort zone, or
no?
or
It was quite in my comfort zone actually, because I think senior year of high school.
Oh, there was okay.
Me was trying to fit in. I was hanging out with like this group of people, which lovely, by the way, lovely people. Just that like I knew we were in the same vibe. I was just, again, forcing myself to fit in. But they were like party animals, okay? So I was partying. So yeah, like by the time I got to college, it wasn't like something new, quite my comfort zone. But what was like the amazing feeling I was feeling was being in an Asian frat.
Yeah.
I was so comfortable. I was like, oh my god, no need to like be weird or like be something I wasn't. I was just myself. And like that was like, oh my god, like that was like just such a brand new feeling. And then slowly, when I kind of got to know the Asian American community at UMass Amherst more, I felt even more comfortable because people would start bringing up like nước mắm, like fish sauce in their conversation. I'm like, what the or like people who speak their language like worse than I speak Vietnamese would like, just so comfortably like spitting out words. I'm like, what have I been doing? And so that made me like, embrace it a bit more, and I start talking about nước mắm, and then I start like, not really like being afraid to talk about those kind of things anymore, like anime, like I watch anime, I love K-pop, that kind of thing. You would never hear that from me in high school. Never. And like, I didn't have to pretend I was into like apple picking anymore, like
you used to be apple picking, right? Right? We went last season.
I know, but you guys know that I wasn't into it.
Okay,
I'm not
true,
like,
true. Yeah.
See, I didn't have to hide that anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, before I was like, oh wow, donuts. Like, no, I could not care less about donuts. But yeah, now I can talk about like soy milk. You know what I mean? Like, and it would just be okay.
Yeah.
Like before, like, little things like that. I'm telling you, like I would hide. Like it wasn't American, so I was like, did not hear that from my mouth. So yeah, like after college, it was just comfort. Oh my god, it was really just. I was coming into my comfort place, and it felt so nice. And of course with every communities, right?
Yeah.
there's good and bad.
Yes.
So after my euphoric kind of like first year of like, oh my god, I can be Asian. Obviously there's shit in the Asian community too that like every community's ever. And I think kind of after like a year or two, I kind of come into this super comfortable place where I'm like, I'm Asian American. You know, it was no longer the struggle of like me trying to be American. And me associating American with whiteness, right? Because that was what it was for me. That was what I saw. And me associating my Asian side with like just Asian, like super Asian, like fresh off the boat kind of Asian. But and it was like then I truly was like Asian American. That is what I am, and it felt like a harmony of like mixed thing, you know. Like, there are things I love about American culture, and I hate, and then there are things about Asian culture that I love and then I hate, and it's just sitting in the comfort of that. It's just like, yeah, there are things I love and hate about everything.
Yeah. Just duality. There's a balance. Yeah.
Yes, there's a balance.
Yeah.
And I think towards like, I would say towards like the end, like senior year was when I kind of really like solidify my identity, I think. And I think it's cool because you knew me like back in the party animal phase.
Yes, the wild Lynn phase.
And we are here now, and you might not, obviously you might not have known then, but you kind of knew me when I was like in a dark place. And then you now know me, which I have told every single person that I peaked this year, which I really truly peaked this year. So Randy have seen me at my lowest, and now me peaking.
You're not at your highest. I don't think you're at your highest version.
You don't think I'm at my
I don't think you're at your highest version. I think there's a lot that you want to achieve.
But I've never been this high before.
Yeah, so we're just going to keep going.
But we're just going to keep going up.
Yeah.
I know we're going to keep going up. You're right.
Because you're becoming the highest version of
yourself.
yourself. You're not at the highest version.
I'm not there, but I just couldn't be like happier. Whatever part of the journey I'm in right now, I just couldn't be happier. And it's just crazy that you knew me since, back then.
I know. I think because my first impression was obviously at that party, and I was like, yep, this girl's definitely wild. But I definitely remember one thing in our first conversations. You were like, I'm so surprised that like you're like not little, but you were extroverted, because you're like, I thought you were so shy and all that stuff. And I was like, really? Me? But then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, because I was still transitioning to the point where like, getting to know people in the Asian community and stuff like that. So I definitely, that makes a lot of sense in that circumstance. And I do want to say, it's like, me and you talking about our experiences and navigating, transitioning to the Asian community, like, whoever, again, that's on an individual basis, right? For whoever, like, whatever kind of community, despite race, whatever, like, you should be part of that if that's where you feel that you're comfortable.
Yep.
I think for us, because we found comfort in, in the Asian community, that's where we, like, transitioned to. And that's something we never experienced before. So we're like,
never.
That's something we tried and we stuck with. And, I still have friends, like, I love my roommate, Neil. He was one of the best guys I could ever meet, and I still keep in contact with him and stuff like that, and he knows where I come from, and I've talked to him about this a little bit too, and he completely understands. So shout out to you, Neil, if you're listening to this. But let's speed up to our relationship now, and where you are mentally. I feel like I'm super grateful for. I think I reached out randomly to you and was just like, hey, like, let's talk, let's catch up.
Yeah, I remember. Our first lunch, one-on-one lunch.
Yes, and I don't know if you know this, but I think it was because at that time I was looking to expand my network, or not my network, but like look for people to have these kind of conversations with, right? To talk about what's going on mentally and stuff like that. And then ever since then, we just been continuous contact of like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How like, and getting real with each other, right? Having difficult conversations. And, we had a difficult conversation recently, and that has lifted so much off of my shoulders because I was keeping it in. And it was such a very hard topic regarding my mental health and stuff like that. But yeah, like, where are you mentally now, especially your mental health? Like, what are you working on or working through? Or is there anything that, like, maybe we missed college years prior that, we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I think before I get into my kind of mental space now, I just want to give a shout out to Randy, our host, because I feel like you have an impact on people's life more than you ever will know, and that's not for you to that's not for you to be like, oh yeah, I have an impact on people's life. That's for us to tell you. You know what I mean? And I hope that people don't keep it in and that they tell you. And so I try to do my part, right? I feel like I should let people know when they have an impact on my life, and so I want to take this time to like tell you that you reaching out at that moment, not knowing I was pretty much going through the same thing you were going through, and I think kickstart this kind of like relationship between us, right? I think that was one of the moment where our relationship kind of reached how do you say it? A new like
level.
Sounds like I'm playing a game. I don't like that. But like reach a new kind of like depth.
Yeah, depth of connection. Yeah, there you go.
That's so much better than level. Okay.
This is why you go to Brown.
No. Yeah, reach a new depth, and so I think I really appreciate you reaching out, and I always love like having people to talk about these things with, and at the time I really was struggling too to find people that would just sit down and like talk for literally hours. Cohen gets sick of me talking, that's why. And so I guess, yeah, kind of segue into that. You made me feel you reminded me of how nice it is to have someone that's kind of on the same wavelength that you when it comes to, talking about our emotions. And I think everyone deserves to have that, whether it doesn't have to just be about emotion, it could be about gaming. If you love gaming, like find find people that talk about it with. I think everyone deserves to have that sort of space. And you really were the first person that reminded me how nice it is to have that with someone. And so I think going forward, I kind of was like, okay, this exists. Like I can talk to people. Like I can find people to talk to, and timing it couldn't have been more perfect. And kind of after that, the whole PhD thing happened, and now I'm in school, and I know it's only been like I think 2 weeks now of me starting school. Not starting school, but like getting into the gist of things. And I feel like I found my community, and it just brings me nothing but like my initial conversation with like the people in my cohort now reminds me of that comfort I felt when you first reached out and we had that one-on-one lunch. It was just like, oh my God, like this is the things I love talking about. And I'm talking about it with people who also care about these topics. And the most beautiful thing is that we're learning, and they're okay with me learning, and same energy back, right? I'm okay with them learning. I am pretty sure I'm the only Asian in my cohort. And so we've been having like a lot of conversation about just race, and we're in school, and so it's like I'm learning about other people's experience, and then they're learning about mine, and it's just such beautiful conversation we're having, and also such a good learning space because of course I don't know everything, so it's like, hey, I'm so interested in learning about your experience, like what it's been like being in the academic space, being who you are, and that just like brings me back to the comfortable feeling I was having with you like during our conversation. And so yeah, in a way, like I'm really thankful to you, and kind of I feel like you're just that like soft like energy that for me, like in my life, like you remind me of what it's like to not be like fighting for my life all the time, and like having people to talk to and that kind of thing. So yeah, like I feel like I owed a lot of my where I am now to you. I think when it comes to where I am mentally, which if you still have not caught that I peaked this year, I peaked this year. So like I don't know. Again, I know that it will get better, and I just can't wait. I can't wait for everyone and for myself to see where I go next. But genuinely right now I am so happy. I've not been this happy in a long time. And I'm just so proud of myself, and I'm so certain of myself, but yet I'm so open to learning, and I'm so open to doing new things, being wrong, and I'm so open to all the like failures that I'm gonna have during my PhD. But I'm so comfortable sitting in that now. That like I wish everyone experienced this feeling, you know, like forever, not just once in their life, but get to feel this at some point. But that's kind of where I'm at. That the duality of things, right? Like where I'm so certain of myself, but I'm so open-minded to change, to learning new things. I'm so like confident in my skill, but I'm so ready to fail. And just being able to be comfortable with literally opposite things, you know, like that's where I'm at like mentally, and I couldn't be more at peace. And I couldn't be happier.
Well, thank you for your kind words, and I'm glad that I could make that impact. And you're right, I honestly don't know how much an impact I have on people, because I don't, not that I don't think about it, but I come from a place where like my self-confidence in that section doesn't really, I'm like, oh, like, no, I'm just being, like, we're just friends, like, I'm just being friendly to you, you know, like, and having, you know, to have these conversations, because this is the type of person that I am. So thank you for that. And in terms of your mental health, like I'm really happy that you are in this type of space. But I knew it took so much work to get here. You know, you talked about being okay with failures. For me, being a perfectionist, I guess how did you get comfortable with failures? Or having that mindset.
Having that mindset, yeah. I am also like a perfectionist. Like I don't. For the longest time, like failure was, it's just no, it's just not good. I blame this on like me not having anything that I'm good at beside like science. I don't really have a hobby where I'm like I'm not good at piano, whatever. All because
you're good at karaoke.
Oh, that's like in my blood. That's in the Viet blood. So there are things like I used to do like taekwondo, and I used to do swimming. I love swimming. I love like the piano. But at some point when I hit the learning curve, like I no longer excel at it at the speed of light, I stopped. Because I was like, this means I'm not perfect at it. Why would I do something I'm not perfect at? So that stopped me from, I feel like, a lot of things in my my younger days. But I think now is, and that hasn't left me though. Like I will always strive for perfection, because I truly believe in that if there is a standard that is good and that it's better, why not make that your goal? And that will always be my drive. And I think I have to have that. For me, I'm trying to be a scientist, right? So I feel like for me, I have to have that. But at somewhere along the way, I learn also, I think, from science to kind of be humble. I think one of the best thing about doing a PhD and eventually becoming a scientist is that you're an expert in your field. Like, nobody knows that more than you do. But the fun thing is, 10 years down the line, like, you could be giving a lecture to a student now about like this specific topic now, and that is what is known. You know what I mean? And you are the person that knows the most about it. But give it 10 years, give it 20 years.
So,
half of that lecture you give is wrong. And that is such a humbling feeling that you will always strive for perfection. And everything you do up until that point will be what you consider closest to perfection, right? You try to produce such results. And so that's why you confidently give this lecture. But always know in the back of your mind that the more you learn, things will change. And the more you learn, the more you don't know.
Yeah.
And then just don't be surprised that 10, 20 years down the line, what you taught was not completely 100% truth anymore. And I think that really taught me how to be okay with that. The failures and I know like so much stake, like so much is at stake. I know that. And like, as you can see, like from the last, how many years has it been since COVID started? I forgot.
Like four, almost coming on 5 years.
The pandemic, right? So much was going down scientifically. Dr. Fauci would be saying one thing, and it would be like not disproved, but it would just more information get added on later, and then it changed a little bit, and people would shit on him for that. You know what I mean? You said this like 3 months ago. Da, 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 what do you mean? But when you're in the science field, that is how it works, you know? And because all the funding was going into like COVID discovery, so things change after 3 months instead of like 10 years, 20 years, you know? But that is how it is, and that's humbling to me. And just knowing that like you're doing your best to produce the best result and the best outcome from what you know at the moment. And you learn more, you're gonna fail. And fail just wrong, whatever, you know, failing is to you. And I think being in that mindset of like that science mindset has, in a way, like make a really big impact on me being able to be okay with whatever failure is to me, right? Yeah.
That's such an interesting perspective, and I think I might use that to help with my failures.
No, please do. I say this to my roommates now too, and they're like, "You like that? Like you like being wrong in the next 10 to 20 years?" I'm like, I mean, nobody likes being wrong, but isn't it like humbling, you know? It just reminds you that even the best of us, president, whatever, right? We can only do our best with what we know.
Yeah.
And it's humbling to know that, and it makes me feel more okay. But it doesn't mean that I stop striving for perfection, but I just find a balance where before it was like perfection or destruction, you know, like if I'm not perfect, but now it's like, Lynn, like work towards that. Never, ever let that go, but you're fine. Like, you make mistake, you fix that, but it's fine.
Yeah. Beautiful words. Okay, we're gonna take a break, and we'll be right back. So, Lynn, just like our other conversations, we can talk for hours on end. I wanted to get into a little bit of just a little bit your personality, your experiences, and that is you recently were very, very solo traveler around the world.
Okay.
So if you want to give a quick synopsis of like, you know, telling the people like how that experience being a solo traveler, just kind of what that did for you, like from a personal standpoint.
Yeah. So I've always been like super anxious person. I need just anxious about things like going in and ordering, that kind of thing, you know? And Kelvin's aunt actually recently reminded me, she's so sweet, by the way. She was like, Lynn, do you realize how far you've come? Like, just a year ago, like, when you were trying to take the train from your house in Needham up to Kelvin in Chelmsford, like, you were on the phone with me because you were so anxious about, like, having to take the bus, and then from the bus I take the train, which sounds, like, insane to people, but yeah, I get anxious about those things. And then recently, when she and I met up in Paris, she was like, look at you now, like... You're
like, I took a bus and a train to get here.
Yeah, and then she was like, I don't think you realize how far you've come, but that was like a year or 2 years ago, and like I'm here to remind you that. And I was like, oh my god, you're right. And yeah, like exactly what you said for my personal development. I wanted to do that because I wanted to like kind of overcome my anxiety about these little things.
Beautiful.
And I think, not that I'm there, but I definitely still get anxious, like making phone calls, that kind of thing. But I do it with more ease now. Heart rate doesn't go anymore. And that's really like truly due to me just putting myself in a foreign country and just look around and find out. So it's done tremendous for me. I've always wanted to do that, and I think it's quite cool of me to just be like, okay, Lynn, go off, like, whew. Because that in itself should cause me so much anxiety, right? And it did. But again, just me being like, okay, I bought the ticket already, I gotta go. And like figuring things out along the way, and yeah, like I've now come into this new, I guess, energy of just like, I'm still anxious, I really am, but it's not detrimental anymore to me, and I think my travel has helped with that a lot. And I think also I was anxious in like socializing with people, especially new people, and I've been yapping away, like at my orientation, at my like meeting, I've been yapping away. and people can say like, I know that yapping sometimes, like when I overtalk, it's me compensating for the fact that I'm nervous and I'm anxious. But either way, I'm yapping away, like, and it's allowed me to, connect with more people. I'm not like shy in the corner anymore. So even if that yapping is out of anxiety, whatever, it has opened, doors for me. And yeah, and that was really due to solo traveling.
It's so crazy.
The yapping skill.
And especially like you are just talking to random strangers in countries and making friends. Like you went to, you've been to Japan, places in Europe.
Yep.
Am I missing any?
I went to India.
Oh yes, India. Yep.
And I went to 5 different countries in Europe. So.
So crazy, so crazy.
I know.
I think I do want to bring this up because I think it's just funny. Because you sent a video to our group chat about you riding on a scooter.
Oh.
She was like, "Yay, this is fun!" And then I was just like, "Oh."
Literally, my knee still hurt from that. It was bruised for like 2 weeks straight.
Oh my god, we're like, is she okay? We're like, she's doing good, right?
Oh yeah, thanks.
And then you sent that, we're like, no, she's not.
Yeah, and I feel like I just didn't really follow up after. You guys could have been so concerned, like, but yeah, I think the first part of the video was like, oh yeah, she's okay. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, that was funny.
Okay. But let's get into my final 3 questions for you. I call it the big 3 because I think there are 3 questions that I think could, make an impact on our viewers. So the first one is, if you could talk to someone who had similar experiences as you, went through the same feelings and same journey as you, what is the message that you would give to them?
Yeah. I think I kind of slightly covered this before, but I think the big take home is the discomfort you feel. Pick your discomfort, I think. Because one will always be worse than, I think, try to... and discomfort is not a bad thing. I don't want people running away from their sadness, from their negative emotions, because that is not good either. But I think stay true to yourself while picking your discomfort, you know what I mean? I think, as vague as that may sound, I hope with my story background, I think that makes a little more sense, but yeah.
Beautiful. And then my second question is, what does becoming the highest version of yourself mean to you? And what are you doing today to do that?
I think staying on topic, which is just, I think we're all in a way fighting to kind of stay ourselves while maneuvering around society, people, things that have impact on us. So I think for me is strengthening like my identity, like strengthening who I am, and I think throughout this conversation you've kind of seen how I try to be that way. And I think since we're talking about kind of like the Asian American like experience, I want to kind of speak to more kind of cater to that. I think two ways I'm staying on track of becoming the highest version of myself and the truest to who I am is, and in relating that to kind of the Asian American identity in me, like what it means to me to be who I am, to be Asian American. Like, so I think two things. First thing is kind of stay, I don't have the best way to say this, but maybe stay political. And the reason why I say this is because I think people tend to, I think as Asian Americans, people tend to kind of forget how we get to where we are. And I don't just mean us personally, I mean us as a group, right? The kind of rights that we have right now, the kind of privileges that we enjoy, I think we often forget how it came to be and who fought for that. And so part of me kept staying true to who I am is making sure that I try to be involved in those kind of fights that's happening currently. Obviously, I can't be involved in a fight that happened like back in the 80s or whatever, but just knowing about them, right? It's my way of contributing in some way, and kind of try to be involved in the movements that are happening now. And how that has helped me kind of become the highest version of myself is when I care about that Asian American identity in me, it helps me understand other people's identities. So when I talk to people that do not come from my background, we kind of have that in common, in that like we're trying to fight for a better future for not just us, right, but for other minorities. And so that's one way I really hold myself accountable. And I think second thing is not letting go of my standards. And this is a little bit more personal than it is to like the Asian American identity. But to me, it's not letting go of things like, I don't know, the quality of my work, that kind of thing. I don't know if this is kind of on your radar, but me and my kind of people from my cohort have had this conversation about how sometimes it feels like recently, in order to like be successful in America, you have to, people say, think like a white man. And what that means is like, even if you match like 10% of the job description, just go for it anyways.
Yeah.
And that was something I think I spent some time kind of forcing myself to be, but that's not who I am, and that's very not in how I was raised. And I don't mean to say that in like, sell yourself short kind of way, but it's that challenge of like, how much of myself do I have to lose to be successful in America? Which sometimes is still very, white-centric at certain levels. And I think so, me kind of battling that and try to stay true to myself and decide on if that's a value that I have decided I don't want to give up, I will fight. I will try my hardest not to give that up, to
Yeah.
kind of chase some sort of success, and I know that's hard. It is a hard thing to do, and I'm not shaming anyone for doing
yeah,
either, right?
yeah.
At the end of the day,
Your choice, yeah.
your choice. But that's how I choose to kind of stay the highest version of myself and stay on that journey. Is me kind of sticking to what are my values, what are my beliefs, and try my best to be successful while holding on to that such values. Yeah. So two things for me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point because I feel like sometimes we may sacrifice morals and values to get that success, but there are ways to do that without giving those up.
Yeah, and it might be harder, but I will put in the work.
Like you always have.
To not lose myself.
And the third question is, if you can connect me with someone that you think would be great on this podcast, who would that be and why?
Okay, I have two people in mind.
Okay.
And I'm glad I kind of got to think about this. The first person is Kelvin's aunt.
Kelvin's aunt, okay.
Yeah, so I call her Ko Lien, which just means Auntie Lien. She's the person in Paris that was like, Lin, how far are you from?
Yeah.
So she's been that kind of guidance for me. Like I said, growing up, I didn't have any sort of guidance. Like there were programs to help, but it wouldn't be people that look like me and come from my background. So Ko Lien was when I met her, after I met Kelvin, has been that person for me. And she has taught me a lot when it comes to kind of struggling through how to get through like anxiety, she's there to teach me but how to get through it, but she's also there for me to when I am not getting through it by myself.
Yeah.
When I just need to like survive. And so I think she will be great for this podcast. And I think obviously she's Asian American, grew up in slightly different time than us, and so I think that would be like a great perspective to have. And second person is Shio, so my still really good friend back from high school. And I think I recommend him because he also was one of the people that was kind of started me on this journey like very early on. He was one of the first people that helped me get on that path of like becoming more comfortable with my Asian identity. And yeah, I just think every time I talk to him, I learn something new. So, and both of them are not Nikki, so I can definitely connect you to them. So that is why.
What she's referencing is that we went to a Nikki concert last night. Love Nikki. Love her music.
Love Nikki.
And I was joking like, what if we get to the point where, love to have Nikki on the podcast. Yeah. But in my head, I'm like, is this really going to be happening?
So yeah, you never know. Maybe Nikki will be here. But now I do not have connection to Nikki. So I hope the two people I recommend will be awesome in addition to your podcast.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Yes.
Let's figure it out.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Well, Lynn, I do want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for talking about your story. I think it's a lot of people can resonate with it, being inspired by it, and I'm glad you're on this journey and that you are pursuing something that you really want. And yeah, I can't wait to hear more about it in our conversations in the future.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome, Randy. I'm happy to be here, and I hope I get invited back and not get Randy's podcast canceled.
No, we'll be okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And please share, like, subscribe. If there's any part of this podcast you felt resonated with you, please share. Be really much appreciated, and thank you for listening. So yeah, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Love you guys. Bye.